The storm began earlier than anyone expected. Dark clouds rolled across the wide fields like giant shadows, chasing the light away. The wind picked up dust from the dry ground, turning it into spinning circles that hit the ranch fences. All the animals had already sensed the danger. The horses kept tossing their heads, and the cattle pushed close together, confused and scared. In the middle of this rising storm stood a young woman named Maria. She had come to the ranch only a few months earlier, hoping for a simple job that would allow her to start fresh. She was strong, hard-working, and kind, but she carried a weight inside her that she never spoke about. Today, that weight felt heavier than usual. She had been helping fix a broken gate at the far end of the ranch when the first drops of rain hit her shoulders. She looked up and saw that the sky was turning almost black. The temperature shifted suddenly, making the air colder and sharper. She knew she needed to get back, but her body was tired, and her mind was even more exhausted. She pushed strands of wet hair away from her face and tried to lift the toolbox again, but her left arm hurt badly. She had been ignoring the pain for days, telling herself she would deal with it later. At that moment, a distant figure on horseback came rushing toward her. It was Ethan, the cowboy who worked the ranch for more than 10 years. He was known for being calm, focused, and steady, even when everything around him fell apart. Ethan slowed his horse as he reached her, his hat dripping with rain and his shirt already soaked. "Maria, you can't be out here right now," he called out. His voice had to compete with the wind, which was growing louder by the minute. Maria forced a small smile, trying to hide her discomfort. "I'm fine. I just need to finish this one thing." But Ethan could see the strain on her face, the way she held her left arm close to her side. He jumped off his horse and walked toward her. Lightning flashed across the sky, showing the worry in his eyes more clearly. "You're not fine," he said firmly but gently. "The storm is getting worse. You need to get back to the barn." She tried to argue, but she felt another sharp pain shoot through her arm. The wind pushed against her, almost knocking her off balance. Ethan stepped closer and held her steady with one hand on her shoulder. "It hurts, but I still need more," she whispered without thinking. She meant she needed more strength, more courage, more energy to get through everything happening inside her, not just outside. She wasn't trying to be dramatic. Her words simply slipped out, carried by the fear and pressure she had been holding in. Ethan looked at her carefully. He understood the meaning behind her words, even if she didn't explain it. He had seen that kind of quiet struggle before. Many people came to the ranch hoping to escape something, and Maria was no different. "You don't have to handle everything alone," he said softly. A sudden crack of thunder echoed across the fields, so loud that even Ethan flinched. Rain began pouring down harder, turning the dirt beneath them into slippery mud. The storm was now too close, too powerful, and too dangerous for them to stay where they were. Ethan took the heavy toolbox from her without asking and placed it on his horse. Then he put his arm around her to help her walk. Maria didn't resist. The moment she leaned slightly into him, she realized how tired she truly was. The storm wasn't just outside. It felt like it had been inside her for years. They moved carefully across the open field. The wind kept pushing them sideways, making each step difficult. Maria stumbled once, but Ethan held her firmly, preventing her from falling. His calm presence helped her breathe easier, even though the thunder was shaking the ground beneath them. "Why didn't you tell me your arm was hurting?" Ethan asked as they walked. Maria looked down. "I didn't want to bother anyone. I thought I could manage it." "You don't always have to manage everything alone," he said again, but this time with more strength in his voice. They kept walking, the rain hitting their faces so hard it stung. Ethan tried to shield her from the wind by keeping her close to his side. The barn was still far away, barely visible through the sheets of rain, but he didn't stop. He had made a silent promise to himself that he would get her there safely. Maria's mind drifted as they trudged through the muddy path. She remembered the last time she felt this helpless, back when she lived in the city. Life there had been full of pressure, expectations, and disappointment. Each failure felt like a new injury, each mistake like a new scar she had to hide. Coming to the ranch was her chance to rebuild herself, but she often felt lost and unsure. The ranch was peaceful, yes, but peace didn't erase old wounds. It only made them quieter, and now, with the storm roaring around her, all her hidden emotions felt exposed. She wasn't weak, but she was tired. She wasn't fragile, but she was hurt. And she wasn't alone. Not anymore, because Ethan was right beside her. When a sudden, strong gust of wind pushed them forward, Maria's knees buckled. Ethan quickly wrapped both his arms around her to keep her from falling. His voice was steady, calm, almost reassuring despite the chaos. "I've got you. Just keep moving." She nodded, swallowing the tightness in her throat. She didn't want to cry, but her emotions were mixing with the fear of the storm, and it made everything feel heavier. The thunder rolled again, long and deep, like the earth itself was groaning. "Almost there," Ethan said. The barn lights flickered in the distance. They were faint, but enough to give Maria a small sense of hope. She focused on those lights, letting them pull her forward through the storm. As they approached the barn, the rain became even stronger, falling so heavily that it felt like walking through a waterfall. Ethan tightened his grip around her, guiding her step by step. When they finally reached the large wooden doors, he pushed them open with his shoulder and pulled her inside. The sudden quietness of the barn felt unreal. The storm was still raging outside, but inside, the only sounds were the soft breathing of the horses and the distant rumbling of thunder. Ethan closed the doors behind them and turned to Maria. She was soaked from head to toe, her hair dripping, her clothes heavy with rain. But for the first time since the storm began, she didn't look scared. She looked relieved, safe. Ethan gently took her injured arm and examined it. "You've been working through this pain for how long?" "A few days," she admitted. He shook his head lightly, but not in anger, more in concern. "You should have told someone." Maria looked at him, her eyes reflecting a mixture of tiredness, stubbornness, and quiet gratitude. "I didn't want to seem weak." "You're not weak," Ethan said. "You're human." The storm outside roared again, but inside the barn, Maria felt a warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe it was from the horses breathing calmly nearby, maybe it was from the safety of the shelter, or maybe it was simply because someone finally understood what she couldn't express. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to breathe deeply. She was hurt, yes, but she also knew something important. She knew that help, support, and care were not signs of weakness. They were signs of healing. And without saying anything more, she realized that this storm, both outside and inside, was only the beginning of a larger journey she needed to face, one step at a time, with the strength she still had and the support she had finally accepted. The rain outside did not slow down. It struck the roof of the barn again and again, making a deep, steady sound that filled the air. Inside, however, everything felt calmer. The horses moved in their stalls, shaking off the water and settling into the warm hay. The lantern hanging from the wooden beam gave a soft yellow light that made the space feel safe and quiet. Maria sat on a small wooden box near the wall, trying to relax her breathing. Ethan stood nearby, checking some bandages and supplies from the ranch's first aid kit. Her arm still hurt, but now the pain felt different, less frightening, more manageable. Maybe it was because she wasn't alone anymore. Maybe it was because she finally stopped pretending everything was fine. Ethan knelt beside her and gently placed a soft cloth on her arm to clean the dirt and rain away. His movements were careful and slow, as if he was afraid of hurting her more. She appreciated that silent kindness. "Does this part hurt?" he asked softly, pressing lightly near her elbow. "A little," she replied, "but it's okay." Ethan shook his head. "Pain is never something you should ignore. You've been pushing yourself too hard." Maria lowered her eyes. She didn't know what to say. It was true. She had worked long hours, barely taking breaks, trying to prove herself every single day. She wasn't forced to. Nobody on the ranch treated her unfairly. But she felt a pressure inside her mind, a need to show she deserved to be there, a need to earn her fresh start. Sometimes she felt like she was competing with her own thoughts more than anything around her. As Ethan wrapped the bandage around her arm, she watched the way he worked, focused, patient, and gentle. "You always stay calm," she said suddenly, "even in storms like this." He smiled a little but didn't look up from what he was doing. "Storms don't scare me much anymore. I've seen worse over the years." "Still," she said quietly, "not many people would ride out here in such weather to check on someone." He paused for a moment before answering. "I didn't ride out here because of the storm. I rode because you were out there. That's different." Maria's breath caught for a second. Not because of anything romantic, just because no one had said something like that to her in a long time. Someone caring without expecting anything in return. Someone noticing her struggle without judging it. She felt a warmth grow in her chest, a soft feeling she had almost forgotten. Thunder rumbled again, shaking the barn. Ethan glanced toward the doors. "This storm might last a while," he said. "You better stay inside." "I don't mind," Maria replied. "It feels safer here." And it did. The barn smelled of fresh hay, leather, wood, and rain. Simple smells, but comforting. One of the horses, a chestnut mare named Willow, lowered her head over the stall door and nudged Maria gently. Maria smiled and reached out with her good hand, stroking the horse's warm neck. Willow always seemed to sense emotions easily. Whenever Maria felt sad or tired, Willow would come closer as if offering silent support. Ethan watched quietly as Maria interacted with the horse. "She likes you," he said. "I like her too," Maria answered. "She understands everything without words." Ethan nodded. "Animals are like that. They know when someone carries heavy thoughts." Maria's hand froze for a moment on the horse's mane. She turned her face slightly away, hoping he wouldn't see the sudden sadness in her eyes. She wasn't ready to talk about her past. She wasn't even ready to face all of it herself. Coming to the ranch was supposed to be a way to escape, but she was learning something important. Running from memories didn't erase them. They came back quietly in moments of weakness, like now. Ethan didn't push her to speak. He simply sat down on a nearby hay bale, giving her space and time. The lantern light flickered gently, casting warm shadows on the wooden walls. The barn felt like a little world, separated from the storm and all the chaos outside. After a long moment, Maria spoke in a soft voice. "Do you ever feel like life gives you more than you can handle?" Ethan rested his elbows on his knees. "A few times," he admitted. "Maybe more than a few." "What did you do?" she asked. "I kept going," he said. "But I didn't do it alone. I had good people around me. Even when I didn't want help, they helped anyway." Maria swallowed hard. She knew he was saying it for her, not for himself. She knew he wanted her to stop carrying everything by herself. She opened her mouth to reply, but at that exact moment, a strong wind slammed against the barn doors, shaking them violently. Ethan stood up immediately. "That wind is getting worse," he muttered, walking toward the doors to check the latch. Maria followed slowly. "Do you think the barn is strong enough?" "Yes," he said confidently. "It's been here for decades. Storms come and go, but this place stands." He paused and looked at her with meaning. "Just like people, even when they feel like they're falling apart." Maria felt her chest tighten again, but this time in a comforting way. She stepped closer to the door and listened to the storm. The wind howled like a living creature, pushing and pulling at the wood. She hugged herself with her good arm, feeling small but not helpless. "Do storms ever scare you?" she asked softly. "Only when I'm alone," Ethan replied. Maria looked up at him, realizing what he meant. She nodded slowly. "I think I understand." They stood side by side for a few moments, listening to the loud roar outside. Inside it was warm, safe, and calm, almost like the storm couldn't touch them here. The horses shifted again, making soft noises. Ethan walked over to check on them, making sure each stall was secure. Maria helped by handing him tools with her good arm. It felt nice to do something useful, something simple. She didn't feel pressure, only a quiet sense of belonging. After finishing the checks, Ethan leaned against a wooden post. "You should rest," he said. "Your body needs time to heal." Maria shook her head gently. "If I sit still, my thoughts get too loud. Helping keeps me calm." Ethan didn't argue. He knew everyone had their own way of getting through difficult moments, so instead he gave her small tasks, nothing heavy, nothing that would strain her arm. She held a lantern while he adjusted loose planks on the stalls. She checked the water troughs while he tightened a few ropes. Working together, side by side, felt peaceful. As time passed, Maria found herself talking more. Small things at first. Memories of her hometown, stories from her first week at the ranch, moments that made her laugh. Ethan listened to every word, sometimes adding his own stories, sometimes simply letting her speak. The storm outside slowly grew quieter, though the rain kept falling. The thunder moved farther away, no longer shaking the ground. It felt like the world was calming down, like the sky was finally taking a breath. Maria sat down again, feeling tired but lighter inside. Ethan handed her a warm blanket from the storage room. She wrapped it around herself, grateful for the comfort. "You're strong," Ethan said quietly. "But strength doesn't mean silence. You don't have to pretend everything is fine." Maria looked down at her bandaged arm. "I'm learning that," she whispered. Ethan nodded. "Good, because storms don't last forever. But people need support while they pass." She looked at him with soft, tired eyes. "Thank you for not letting me face this alone." "You never were," he replied. The barn felt warmer now, filled with a gentle calmness that eased the weight in Maria's heart. The storm was still out there, but it no longer felt like something that could break her. She realized something important. Healing didn't come from running away. It came from facing the storm, finding shelter, and accepting the hands offered along the way. Part 2 ended with Maria wrapped in warmth, surrounded by quiet strength, and holding on to a new sense of hope she thought she had lost forever. The storm continued through most of the night, but inside the barn, the world felt steady. The lantern light swung gently from the beam, and the soft breathing of the horses created a warm rhythm in the air. Maria sat wrapped in the blanket Ethan gave her, feeling the last waves of fear slowly leave her body. Her arms still hurt, but the pain felt distant now, almost like a reminder that she was alive, safe, and no longer out in the cold. Ethan finished checking the stalls again before sitting down on a hay bale across from her. He looked tired, but calm, as if the long night didn't bother him. Maria studied his face for a moment. He had a way of making even the harshest moments feel manageable. She wondered how someone could carry so much responsibility and still stay steady. "You should rest," Ethan said gently. "You've had a long day." Maria shook her head. "If I sleep now, I'll wake up feeling worse. My thoughts become heavy when I close my eyes too early." Ethan nodded. He understood more than she expected. "Then talk," he said. Sometimes talking makes the night shorter. Maria looked down at her hands, unsure where to begin. She felt a quiet pressure inside her chest, not painful, but heavy, like a truth waiting to escape. She wasn't used to speaking about herself. For years, she had kept everything inside, thinking silence was safer. But sitting here, hearing the soft sound of rain on the roof and knowing she wasn't alone, she felt something new. Courage. "There's something about storms," she whispered. "They remind me of the days when everything in my life felt out of control." Ethan leaned forward slightly, giving her his full attention but not crowding her. "You don't have to say anything you're not ready to say." Maria took a slow breath. "I know, but maybe it's time." The lantern's warm glow made her feel a little braver. She kept her voice soft and slow, speaking one piece at a time, like she was opening a door carefully. "I came here because I wanted a new start," she said. "I wanted a place where I could breathe again. My old life, it was noisy, busy, full of expectations I couldn't meet." Ethan didn't interrupt. His calm presence gave her space to continue. "Every day felt like a race I didn't choose to run," she said. "People wanted me to be stronger, faster, better, but they never asked if I was okay. I kept trying. I gave everything I had, but nothing was ever enough." She paused when her voice shook. Ethan waited, patient and steady. "One day I just stopped," she continued. "I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I felt tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix, so I left. I didn't tell anyone why. I didn't even know how to explain it. I only knew I needed to find a place where life made sense again." Ethan nodded slowly. "And you came here." Maria looked around the barn, at the horses, the old wooden beams, the soft shadows on the ground. "Yes," she said. "This place is quiet, honest. The work is hard but real. For the first time in years, I felt like I wasn't drowning." Ethan's eyes softened. "You made the right choice. There's strength in knowing when you need to walk away." Maria's face warmed. It felt good to hear that. She had doubted her decision for so long. "But sometimes," she admitted, "the past doesn't stay in the past. Some days, the old feelings come back. The pressure, the fear, the belief that I'm not enough." Ethan shifted closer, but still gave her space. "Everyone has days like that. You're not alone in it." She smiled sadly. "I know. But today, when my arm started hurting, I felt that old panic again. I thought people would see me as weak." Ethan shook his head gently. "You're not weak, Maria. You're someone who has carried too much for too long." She looked up, surprised by how easily he understood. Outside, a long roll of thunder echoed across the sky, but it sounded softer now, almost like the storm was finally beginning to calm. Maria listened, feeling a strange peace settle inside her. She wasn't afraid anymore. She felt lighter. Ethan stood and walked toward the small side room in the barn where supplies were kept. When he returned, he handed her a warm cup of tea he had prepared from a small kettle they kept for emergencies. The steam rose gently, carrying the scent of herbs and calmness. Maria took it gratefully. "You think of everything," she said with a soft smile. "I try," he replied. "People need warmth on nights like this." She took a slow sip. The warmth spread through her, relaxing her tired muscles and easing her thoughts. They sat in silence for a little while, listening to the fading storm. It wasn't uncomfortable silence, it was soft and peaceful, like two people sharing the same quiet understanding. After a moment, Ethan spoke again. "There's something about you, Maria," he said thoughtfully. "You push through things even when they hurt. You keep going even when you're tired. That's strength, not weakness." Maria looked down into her cup. Her eyes softened. Sometimes I wish someone would help me carry the weight. You have people now, Ethan said gently, and you don't have to wait for the next storm to ask for help. His words settled in her heart like warm light. She didn't have a response, but she didn't need one. Ethan wasn't asking for anything. He was simply offering support, quietly and honestly. The horses stamped their hooves lightly, breaking the quiet moment. Maria smiled as Willow leaned over again, nudging her shoulder like a gentle reminder she wasn't alone. You know, Maria said softly, when you found me out there in the storm, I felt something shift inside me. I realized I've been running from storms my whole life. But tonight, I didn't feel like I was running. That's because you weren't, Ethan replied. You were facing it, and you didn't face it alone. Maria's eyes grew warm with emotion she couldn't fully name. Gratitude, comfort, hope, maybe all of them at once. She wrapped the blanket tighter around her and exhaled deeply. What about you, Ethan? She asked. Have you ever had a storm that scared you? Ethan looked toward the barn doors for a long moment. Yes, he admitted quietly. But I learned something important. Storms pass. They always do. And the only thing that matters is who stands with you while they're happening. Maria felt those words settle into her heart. She realized she had found something rare. Someone who understood without needing every detail, someone who didn't push her, judge her, or expect anything in return. The night grew quieter, the rain softened to a steady drizzle, the thunder faded into distant murmurs. The sky, though still dark, no longer felt heavy with fear. Maria leaned back against the barn wall, feeling calmer than she had in months. She closed her eyes, letting the warm tea settle inside her. She felt safe, supported, and understood. And as the storm outside finally began to break, the storm inside her slowly began to heal too. Part 3 ended with a sense of growing trust, quiet strength, and the gentle beginning of emotional healing, shaped not by dramatic moments, but by understanding, kindness, and the warmth of human connection. The morning arrived slowly, as if the sky itself was tired after the long storm. Soft light pushed through the cracks of the barn walls, making thin golden lines across the floor. The rain had stopped completely, leaving behind a fresh, cool smell that filled the air. Drops of water still rested on the horses' manes and on the wooden beams, shining like tiny pieces of glass. Maria sat where she had fallen asleep the night before, still wrapped in the blanket. Her breathing was calm, steady, and peaceful. She hadn't planned to sleep, but the warmth of the barn and the comfort she felt had finally pulled her into rest. When she slowly opened her eyes, the world felt gentle. For once, she didn't wake up with the old weight pressing down on her chest. Ethan sat on the other side of the barn, checking a saddle strap. He noticed her waking and gave a small, kind smile. "Morning," he said softly. Maria rubbed her eyes. "Did I actually fall asleep?" "You did," he replied with a calm chuckle. "You needed it." She stretched her good arm, feeling a small pull in her muscles but no rush of panic like yesterday. Everything felt lighter. She watched Ethan work. The way he moved, focused, steady, patient, made her feel safe, not because he protected her, but because he reminded her what calm looked like. The storm outside was gone, but inside, something new had begun to grow, a quiet trust that neither of them needed to name. "Thank you," Maria said after a moment, "for staying here with me last night." Ethan shook his head gently. "You don't need to thank me. I stayed because you needed someone. That's all." Maria stood slowly, letting the blanket fall around her shoulder. She walked toward the barn door, pushing it open just enough to peek outside. The entire ranch looked different after the storm. The sky was bright and clear. and the ground glistened with leftover raindrops. Puddles reflected the sunlight, and the air felt clean and new. "It looks beautiful," she whispered. Ethan joined her at the door. "Storms often leave the world looking fresh," he said. "It reminds us things can get better." Maria nodded slowly. The words touched her deeply because they felt true in more ways than one. They stepped out into the soft morning air. The ground was a little muddy, but the cool breeze brushed gently against their faces. Birds chirped from the fences and trees, happy for the return of calm. Maria breathed in deeply. She felt alive, stronger, and more aware of the peace she had been searching for. Ethan walked beside her as they moved toward the main house. The buildings seemed untouched except for a few loose pieces of wood, but nothing dangerous. The ranch survived storms just like people did. It stood, it waited, and it healed. "How's your arm?" Ethan asked gently. "It hurts a little," she admitted, "but it's not scary anymore." "That's good," he said. "You'll need a few days of rest." Maria paused. "I know," she said, "and this time, I think I'll actually rest." Ethan smiled softly, relieved. "Good." They walked slowly across the open field. The wet grass brushed against their boots, and the sun warmed their faces. When they reached the porch of the main house, Ethan held the railing for her to steady herself. She didn't need it, but she appreciated the gesture. Inside, the house was quiet. The storm had left behind a faint, cool smell that mixed with the scent of morning coffee coming from the kitchen. Maria sat down at the small table, and Ethan poured her a cup of warm tea. She wrapped her hands around the cup, feeling the heat spread into her fingers. "You know," Maria said, staring at the steam rising from the cup, "last night made me realize something important." Ethan sat across from her, listening. "I've always tried to do everything alone. I thought asking for help meant I wasn't strong enough. But last night, when you helped me through the storm, I felt something different. I felt safe. And I think I've never allowed myself to feel that before." Ethan leaned back slightly, absorbing her words. "Safety isn't weakness," he said gently. "It's something everyone deserves." Maria nodded, staring at the wooden table. "I used to think I didn't deserve it." "Why?" Ethan asked, not pushing too hard, just giving her space. Maria took a deep breath. "Because I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I stayed in situations that hurt me. And when everything fell apart, I blamed myself. I thought I wasn't good enough to have a peaceful life." She looked up at him, her eyes steady but soft. "But being here, I'm starting to see things differently." Ethan nodded. "Sometimes all we need is a place that lets us breathe again." Maria took a sip of tea. The warmth spread through her like a gentle reminder that healing wasn't fast, but it was possible. After finishing their drinks, Ethan stood. "Come on," he said. "Let's walk a little. Slowly, though." Maria agreed. They walked outside again, this time toward the pasture. The ground squished beneath their boots, but the soft mud didn't bother them. The sun grew warmer as they walked, lifting the morning fog and filling the world with gold. "You know," Ethan said after a while, "storms can be frightening, but they also show us how strong we are. You faced one last night, inside and outside." Maria looked at him, touched by the truth in his words. "It didn't feel like I faced it. It felt like it swallowed me." "But you came out the other side," he said gently. "That's what matters." They paused near a fence, looking out at the horses grazing peacefully. Willow, the chestnut mare, lifted her head and walked toward them. Maria reached out her good hand to pet the horse, feeling a wave of comfort wash over her. "She helped me too," Maria said with a small smile. "Horses always calm me." "They have a way of understanding things without words," Ethan agreed. "Kind of like you." Maria blinked, surprised. Like me? Ethan nodded. You feel things deeply. You notice small details. You carry emotions quietly. People like that understand storms better than most. Maria looked down, touched. No one had ever described her like that before. They continued walking slowly. The world around them was full of life again. The storm had washed everything clean, making the colors brighter and the air lighter. It felt like a new beginning, not just for the ranch, but for Maria, too. After a while, they stopped near a large oak tree. Ethan rested his hand on the trunk. This tree has been here for more than 50 years, he said. It survived every storm, even the big one 10 years ago. Maria touched the rough bark. How does it keep standing? Strong roots, Ethan said simply. Even when the wind pushes it, the roots keep it steady. Maria nodded slowly. She understood the message. She didn't have strong roots yet, not ones she trusted, but maybe she could grow them here. I want to be like this tree, she said quietly. I want to stand strong, even in storms. Ethan looked at her with warm sincerity. You already are. For a moment, the world felt perfectly still. The wind brushed past them softly, like the sky was carrying a message of peace. Maria closed her eyes and let the warmth of the sun rest on her face. For the first time in years, she didn't feel lost. She didn't feel alone. She felt present, here, in this moment, in this place where she finally belonged. Part 4 ended with Maria taking her first real steps toward healing, feeling grounded, supported, and ready to face the world with a new sense of strength and peace. The night slowly grew calmer after the storm that had shaken both Anna and the cowboy, Jacob, to their core. The rain had finally softened into a gentle drizzle, and the thunder that once roared loudly now whispered far away in the clouds. But inside both of them, a different kind of storm was still moving. They had gone through fear, pain, courage, and unexpected strength together, and now came the moment when they had to understand what all of it truly meant. Anna sat near the small fire Jacob had lit with great care. The wood was wet, but he managed to make it burn by shielding it with his hat and hands. The firelight drew soft shadows on their faces, and Anna finally felt a sense of warmth that she hadn't felt since the storm began. Her clothes were still damp, her arms were sore, and her legs felt heavy. But she felt safer than before. She looked at Jacob, who sat across from her, staring at the flames as if thinking deeply about something important. Jacob had always been a man of quiet strength. He was not the type to speak many words, but when he did speak, each word carried meaning. Now, however, he looked as if he was searching for the right way to say something. His hat rested beside him, soaked from the rain, and his hair stuck slightly to his forehead. He had scratches on his arms from the branches he had pushed through while helping Anna, but he didn't seem bothered by them. Anna watched him carefully. There was something she wanted to say, but she didn't know how to begin. They had survived the storm together, but she felt this moment was even harder than the storm itself. After a long silence, it was Jacob who spoke first. His voice gentle but steady. He told her he needed to know the truth about why she had pushed herself so hard, why she had kept going, even when she was clearly hurting. Anna lowered her eyes, her hands closing together in her lap. She didn't know if she was ready to open up, but she knew Jacob deserved honesty. She took a deep breath and looked up at him. Her voice, though soft, carried the weight of everything she had been keeping inside. She explained how she had always been stubborn, how she hated appearing weak, and how she thought pushing herself was the only way to prove she could handle anything. She told him that sometimes the pain inside her heart felt heavier than any physical pain. Jacob listened quietly, not interrupting, his eyes steady and calm. He didn't judge her or rush her. He simply let her speak until she felt she had finally released everything she had been holding in. When she finished, she felt lighter, as if a heavy stone had been removed from her chest. Jacob nodded slowly. He told her that there was strength in trying, but there was even greater strength in accepting help. No one could walk through every storm alone. His words were simple, but they touched her deeply. She realized that she had never allowed herself to rely on anyone before. She had always believed she had to fight her battles alone. But Jacob, a man who barely knew her, had stayed with her in the storm, held her when she was slipping, and protected her when she felt she couldn't continue. It made her understand that trust was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of courage. The fire crackled softly as the wind brushed past them. Anna wrapped her arms around herself, not because she was cold, but because she felt something shifting inside her. She thanked Jacob softly, her voice trembling just a little. She told him that she didn't know how she would have made it through the storm without him. Jacob shook his head and said anyone with a heart would have done the same. But Anna knew that wasn't true. Not everyone would have risked themselves for someone they barely knew. Not everyone would have stayed calm under such pressure. Not everyone would have guided her step by step the way he did. Jacob was different, and she was grateful. After a while, Jacob stood up and picked up his hat. He told her they needed to head back before the night grew colder. The storm had passed, but the land around them was still wet and dangerous. Anna slowly rose to her feet, feeling the soreness in her muscles, but also feeling a new kind of strength. She walked beside Jacob, each step steady and sure. The moon had come out now, glowing softly through the fading clouds, lighting their path just enough to see. As they walked, Anna found herself thinking about everything that had happened since the storm began. She remembered how scared she had been when the thunder first cracked across the sky. She remembered how the wind had nearly knocked her off her feet. She remembered how Jacob had held her steady and spoken to her in a calm, grounded voice. She remembered her own determination to keep moving, even when her legs felt weak. The memories felt strange now, almost like a test she didn't know she needed to pass. By the time they reached the edge of Jacob's ranch, the world around them had changed again. The sky was clearer, the air smelled fresh, and the sound of dripping leaves echoed softly through the trees. Jacob opened the gate and let Anna step through first. She paused for a moment, looking at the wide stretch of land that looked peaceful again after all the chaos. Jacob walked ahead a little and Anna followed, still lost in thought. Inside the small cabin, Jacob lit a lantern, filling the room with warm, gentle light. Anna sat down on a wooden chair near the window and watched as he prepared a pot of warm tea. He placed it in front of her without a word. She smiled softly and thanked him again. The warmth of the cup seeped into her hands, relaxing her even more. For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence. Anna felt safe, calm, and strangely at peace. After everything, this quiet moment felt like a reward. She knew her journey wasn't over. Many challenges still waited for her in life. But tonight, she had learned something important. She didn't always have to carry her burdens alone. She could lean on someone, at least sometimes. And that didn't make her weak. It made her human. Jacob eventually leaned back in his chair and looked at her with thoughtful eyes. He told her she had done well, stronger than she believed. Anna felt a warm pride growing in her chest. She thanked him, not just for tonight, but for reminding her of something she had forgotten a long time ago. She deserved support, and she deserved kindness. As the night grew quieter and the storm clouds completely disappeared from the sky, Anna realized that the darkest moments often lead to the most meaningful discoveries. The storm had tested her, frightened her, and pushed her to her limits. But it had also given her something unexpected, a reminder that even in the harshest moments, there could be someone willing to stand by her side. And as she closed her eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the cabin sink into her, Anna silently promised herself that she would carry this lesson with her into every storm that waited in her future.